Hey, howdy folks. I've been working on some medical equipment. I had some different medical machines like this one here in here, different types. And I got them fixed, got them repaired, got them back. But unfortunately, this one here is dead on arrival. I don't know, maybe one day we'll discuss some of that. But I was talking about 3D print farming the last few weeks and was trying to get this out to you. And it became a huge problem because there are so many different ways that a 3D print farm can happen, can start, whatever. And I think that in itself sort of says that, yeah, it's kind of a cool area to, if you want a side hustle, full-time job thing, I don't know. Big question today, comment below. What 3D printing machine would you buy specifically if you're going to start a 3D printing farm? And just get some opinions out there. You might even add a little bit about why you picked that machine or something. Most people, I would think, would probably head towards Prusa with any knowledge and say, this is the machine to go with. But there's a lot of different machines. But let's talk about starting a 3D print farm and what we need to do. Hey, howdy, we're back. Okay, the reason I started all this up today was the idea was there's a lot of folks out there that are starting these how to start 3D printing farms and schools, and they're charging hundreds of dollars. Some of them are charging $500, whatever, and they're asking for subscriptions and stuff, fees to get into, learn how to 3D print farm and sell online or something. And I think that information, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it should be free on YouTube or something. So you just watch it and, learn what you need to know about it, sort of thing. I don't see it as being something that, oh yeah, I'm going to go to a school and learn how to 3D print farm. Like, oh boy. But maybe some of them have some really good material and might, give you some good instructions or help you to, kind of guide you. But I think at some point it's like, if you need that much help, maybe you shouldn't go down that road because, I don't think it's a hard road, but there's a lot of people that tell me 3D printing, like they'd love it to get into it, but well, do I need a computer? Yeah, can I not just buy the 3D print farm or, and just make it happen or something? Like, no, you sort of have to build this thing, from scratch. So I thought we'd sort of cover the points on that thing today. And the very first thing we need to do, we want to start a 3D printing farm. What's the very first thing we should be doing? First thing to do, well, you could buy a 3D printer. That would be a pretty good first. Actually, yes and no. The very first thing that I did personally was I had a couple of product ideas that had not, just didn't exist in the world, and I thought, I can't find them online, nobody sells this stuff, and I could draw and make these things. So I was going to have to learn CAD, of course. And again, computer, you're going to have to use a computer. You really should be proficient on a computer. Learn CAD would be, that's something else. I'm going to set that aside because you don't necessarily have to learn how to draw something up. If you're going to start a 3D printing farm, you can go another direction. But the direction I'm going to recommend is to come up with some ideas on new products, draw those products up on the computer, and be able to upload those things to a slicer, which in turn put them on a printer and actually create that item. So I'm going to say that the very first thing you should have a couple of good ideas for products. That would be, that's almost better than buying your first 3D printer. Yeah. Now, the very first 3D printer you should buy, I am going to probably I was going to go against it, but I'm going to lean towards that Bamboo PS1 machine. It's probably a good starter for most folks. But again, let's go back. This is, we're going to back up a little bit. Depending on the size of your product, because the problem I started out, man, I had this great idea for a couple of products I wanted to make, but they required a build plate that was huge, and that stalled me out immediately. Yeah, that was before I even had my very first 3D printer ever. I needed a big build plate to make what I wanted to make. So depending on what you want to make, you might want to consider the product and the size of the product even, and the type of material that you're going to be using with that machine. Obviously a wide open bed slinger and you want to run ABS or something as a 3D print farm, I'm going to tell you right now, don't waste your time. No, probably start making something with PLA or PLA Plus even, just because it's just some of the easiest filament to run. And if it, if anything, you don't have to buy a really expensive machine like the Modix or something that's $10,000 or something. Yeah, you don't need to buy that. But you do need to get a good printer. And that printer should dictate what size of, up to what size of product you can make. So that's a decision that really needs to be made at the get-go, especially when you 3D print farm. And they say, and I have sort of done it a little bit, is to stay in line with certain machines. Like if you're gonna say, just example, if you're gonna buy like the Mark III Prusa machines or something, make sure you just keep buying those, because that way you can carry the parts for those things easily, you can maintain them. After a while you sort of recognize when something goes bad on one, you go, oh, I know what that is. Here, let's replace the filament sensor has gone bad, or whatever it is in the machine, or oh, we need to re-level the bed because I know this machine's good, it's just this one here has been messing up, or it's layer separation or something going on in it. There's a lot that can go wrong, and the biggest threat to 3D printing sometimes is your product. You want it to come off consistently over and over again off the machine. And you have to suddenly realize, you may be making hundreds of these things, maybe even thousands if you're successful, and you're selling this product. You want it to come off exactly the same over and over and over again. And machines, unfortunately, the cheaper consumer ones, they wear down fairly quickly. Now, when I say quickly, that's hard to relate unless you're like myself, where your machines are running sometimes 24/7, they're running all day long, all night long. And after weeks of running, you start to see problems creep in. Yeah, and it doesn't take too long if it's a consumer, grade machine. There was a couple of machines I've had in for reviews and stuff, and I've showed them and said, I'm going to call this a prosumer or almost industrial grade machine. And what I mean by that is it needs very little, maintenance. The bearings, it's not using the old, you remember the old rubber, let's see if I have any here, but the old rubber wheels that they used to run on, like the CR10. The CR10 was great. It was an awesome machine, but after a few weeks, it needed some tweak, and after a few weeks it would need some more adjustment, and I had to keep an eye on it all the time. And at the same time, it was still a very, very good machine for that. And the Prusa machines are like that. They will run for weeks into months at a time, and sometimes maybe even a year or more, and they may never need any adjustment. They may need very little. Now the Bamboo Lab, same thing. They will run a very long time, hopefully well, and give you consistent prints, which is one of the reasons I think Bamboo Lab does a great job for what they have. The problem with me with the Bamboo Lab is just that darn silly build plate, 256 by 256 build plate area. The height thing I don't really care about. And again, depending on your product, you might need a product that needs a lot of height. And I'll tell you the truth, height on 3D printers becomes a problem. I have seen a lot of failure over height, but let's get to the next part of this. Yeah, so let's total up what we've got so far. We've sort of come up with the idea we're going to be able to be fairly proficient with computers. We may use Tinkercad or something, but we're going to learn a little bit of how to CAD draw up our own product, which, like I said, there's another road. We'll talk about that quite soon, just a little bit later. We'll come back to that. And then from the CAD, you understand how to use a slicer, or the basics of using a slicer software. So the next thing, of course, you're going to need a 3D printer. And I guess what my caution is right now is I would not necessarily go after a brand name. I would look for a printer that has the specs and will give you like whatever product it is you want to make. If you want to make this size, you could buy a pretty small printer and just bang these things out. In fact, I think it was Cheaty makes a small one that will knock something like this out over and over again very consistently. Cheaty's a pretty good company, actually. I like their stuff. It seems like it's been pretty good. But you could buy Bamboo Lab. You could buy the Prusa machines. There is just Adventure 5s, Centurion from Elegoo. I mean, there is all kinds of machines. I would try to stay away from bed slinging if you can. You may or may not be able to do that. A bed slinger, a lot of times they'll be a little bit cheaper, but there's more wear and tear to them, and also it kind of limits you, especially with an open bed slinger. You're kind of limited to what you're going to be able to run for filament. And again, with a 3D printing farm, you just want a robust machine that will be able to knock this thing out over and over and over again, you know, until it falls off the counter kind of thing, you know, and just keeps printing. So those are the things that we're, you know, putting in line. Now, the next thing, of course, is product. As far as online products, I'm going to have to recommend, and it's not a great experience from the get-go, it's kind of a learning curve part, I guess. The best place to put it on there is Etsy, and you could put some stuff on there like this and just start selling it and see how it does, you know. And don't let it get you too far down the road, because Etsy, they're pretty good with the search engine operations, that kind of thing. They will, hopefully they will sell some of your product for you to clients, customers that want to buy it, you know, whatever it is. It's not the end of all ends, like that's the only place to go. Eventually, if you expand, you may want to slip into eBay, ultimately Amazon, you know, that sort of thing. But I would start with Etsy. It's easy to use. It's kind of a no-brainer, you know, situation. But that's a place to create the products, put them on there, and start selling. And that's, you know, that's going to be all part of that see how you do kind of thing. And also be very careful of pricing. You may or may not be able to be competitive with the products or the ideas. If you have brand new ideas that you've CAD drawn from scratch, I think that's the very best of the best. Hopefully nobody can copycat you afterwards or try to and sell for less just so they can, you know, they think they can make money. I've seen a lot of people sell on there and suddenly realize after about 6 months that, hey, I'm not making any money, or it's even costing me to sell on Etsy because I didn't really price my stuff correctly. And that's a shame, because when you go down that hole, sometimes you could really fall. So, you know, beware of all that. It's just a good place to start, and a place to experiment with products, you know. And so I'm going to have to go that way for a 3D printing farm. That is the place. Yeah, I don't know of anything. I just don't know of any other. You could go to Macari, something like that, but again, I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend Etsy. That's going to get your most exposure. It has, I think it's 800 million or whatever it is, people that view into Etsy that buy stuff all the time. So it's a really good market. The only one that would be bigger and badder than that would be the good old eBay, but eBay is different. eBay is functionally, it has some issues with it, especially for myself, where there's used product on there sometimes, and you can't compete with that, because if it's a used item, the fellow that comes on there that's shopping is looking for the cheapest one, then he's not going to buy yours. He's going to buy, you know, the used item that's scratched and dented or whatever, and take it, because it's just the nature of people, human, you know, whatever. So anyways, we got to Etsy. Now, the next stumbling block, I think, with 3D printing farm is we've covered making labels. Using one of those heat type machines for label making is awesome. They're just, you know, it's just the way to go. But also shipping itself, it's kind of a logistics thing. You've got to figure out, you know, what size of box or whatever it is, and how to get that box cheap, dirt cheap, and how to package that up decently so it'll be safe, you know, on its way to the customer. And also, you've got to yourself figure out. Now, here's my situation. I go into town every morning. I have a meeting and I do some things. And while I'm doing all this, I go right past a post office. So I always drop my shipping off each morning with the post office and send it on its way. So technically, my shipping is it's automatic, it's looked after. It doesn't really cost me anything because I'm already on the road kind of thing. Now, there's a lot of people that are not going to be able to do that, and a lot of people are going to have problems with, like, well, I'm going to have to load the car up, drive 15, 20 miles, maybe more, whew, you know, and go drop all this off. Now, all of a sudden, you've got the gas, or the truck, you know, you've got gas and wear and tear on the vehicle, you've got your time tied up, that sort of thing. And that's a little bit of a problem, depending on where you live and the conditions around you. Heck, even how consistent the electric power is around here sometimes can make a little bit of a difference too, but won't get into that. Now, that's one road. Let's talk about the other road for a second. And the other one is, again, just having a computer and getting into like Thangs or something like that, and buying subscriptions off of designers that have, maybe 20 or 30 different, modeling designs, that you can buy a subscription to him and download, and you're able to market those items. So you go ahead and make them on your machine, again, put them on Etsy and sell them. How does that work? Well, you just go to, I'm going to use Thangs for an example. There's there's dozens of different websites out there. Maybe we should get a list together one of these days of all these sites you can go to, but you just download the STL file and it's in your computer, and then you go ahead, run it through your slicer. And again, slicers are free, but I'm going to say Orca is my favorite. That's the best slicer. I used to use Cura a lot. I really kind of leaned to Cura for a long time, but Orca is probably the best slicer. Prusa has a really good one too, and it's free. You just install it, download it, use it. But putting in the slicer, the STL file, to create the G code that's going to model this thing on a 3D printer. And the 3D printer, again, your choice, but I would say, if nothing else, don't necessarily chase after brand naming. I would go after the machine that has the specifications, that is the closest thing to what is going to produce the best product for you. And if the sales are really great, get a second machine, get a third machine, however many you need. That is one place that, wow, years ago, I was told 3D printing could never be a production machine. It just can't. It can't compete with the worldly of the extrusion and plastics and things. It'll never be able to do anything. So you're not buying something that a whole factory full of 3D printers are going to make something or something. And I think that whoever said that probably thought cell phones would never sell or something either. But the thing was, even a 3D printing farm can be more and more competitive with faster machines and more of them if you're selling a lot. If you're selling a lot of these and you get more machines, you'd be amazed at how quickly the cost and the speed of how things fall apart, because it's like, man, if you have 100 machines banging this out or something, and every hour on the hour, if this takes 1 hour to make, we'll just, again, just theory, it takes 1 hour to make, all of a sudden you can make 100 per hour. It's like, it just changes the whole business model around you. But to get started, well, I've just given you the steps of where you need to go. And I guess for CAD programming, I would say probably start with the free one, like Tinkercad. Not even FreeCAD. Don't even go to FreeCAD, because I guarantee you're probably going to hate it. Yeah, most likely, But Tinkercad, I think, is a good place to start, especially if you have no mechanical engineering background, anything like that. The other thing that you should consider very strongly is become familiar with using metric for everything you do with 3D printing. I always measure my stuff up in metric and produce it metric off the machines and stuff. I just don't even bother going with the North American, the normal, way of measuring things. I had to learn metric and get really accustomed to using metric, where I knew the size difference between 20 centimeter and 100 millimeters or something. All of a sudden, like, yeah, I could look at something and realize what that was. And it was kind of hard to do the switch over, but it's important. It really is, and it's really going to help you down the road to get really good with modeling up sort of thing. Now the 3D download thing, I'm against that for a lot of reasons. Mostly because anybody else can go into these designers and download the same STL file, put it on like Etsy, eBay, Amazon, whatever, and of course now you're not competitive because you've got 1,000 other turkeys out there that can do the same thing. And yourself, there is going to be folks out there that are going to say, well, say this costs you $20 to produce one unit, whatever, just an example. There are people out there that will put this thing on Etsy for $9.95 with free shipping, and about 6 months later, they go out of business, and they may not even be sure of what the heck went wrong. I lost a lot of money on that deal, but it will happen, and it does happen. So it's one of the reasons why to protect yourself a little bit, I really prefer to, you know, do your own drawings and sketch up your own goodies and product ideas, especially product ideas, because there is a million products out there that are not being made by 3D printers right now that somebody could come up with and say, well, let's make, you know, this and offer it to households. Everybody could use one of these, and let's make them. You know, there's lots of great ideas that way. You know, some will fly, some will not. It is what it is. But this is a great place to start and experiment with, you know, the modeling and just see what sells, what doesn't sell. And expect to have, you know, there's going to be bumps in the road. You know, there just is. But that's, you know, that's sort of, you know, today I just sort of gave you the guidelines, the basics of, you know, how to start a 3D printing farm and all in the order of things that, you know, need to be done. And it's like, you don't need to spend $200 for a subscription, okay? You know, it's like, and we'll come back to this. Yeah, we'll discuss this more. Meantime, thank you for watching Coffee and Tools. Please like, share, subscribe, ring the nose bell. I'm out of here. Over and out.